Good morning, everybody. On this very lazy Sunday morning, with half-empty auditorium, I am going to start a story. This is a story of women. As you see the title, Story of Annapurna Parivar. This is a story of many women, poor, uneducated women. They always had less resources and more problems. This is also my story. I was born in a family of social activists. My parents fought for the freedom and then for the rights of workers and women. I grew up in Mumbai, lived 30 years of my life in Mumbai. Last 25 years, I am in Pune. One remarkable thing about both cities, slums are growing. My mother used to say, no one likes to live in slums. Situation compels them. I worked for a nationalized bank for 12 years. I could see my bank doing thousands of crores business, yet the vegetable vendor across the street was borrowing from the private moneylender. My father had taught me the difference between class banking and mass banking. I met Shevantabai in a vegetable market. Shevantabai and Lakshmibai were two sisters selling vegetables. I was buying vegetables from them in the market. I could see them borrow small amounts of loans from private moneylender called Anna. They used to borrow small amounts of loan and pay heavy interest. They lost whatever they earned, they lost it to Anna. I could see that they needed working capital loans at low interest. I knew that most banks had targets to give loans to the poor. And most banks met the target by doing some gimmicks at the year end. I tried convincing my colleagues that we should give loans to people like Shevantabai, and I think they'll repay because they are repaying the moneylender. My colleagues thought I was over idealistic. On the other hand, I tried to talk to these women, ask them whether they would like to borrow from a bank. Even they were not interested. They had heard the banks lock up homes if one doesn't repay in time. They also said they have no asset in their name. They knew no one who was earning a regular salary. They asked me whether the bank would give a loan without asset and guarantee. I knew the answer was no. Yet I told them they can form a group of women like them and probably we can approach for a group loan scheme. So, after a series of discussions, I could convince Shevantabai and Lakshmibai to form a group of women who were like them. They were ready to take a loan from me, not the bank. So, I had to pull up personal resources. I pulled up 9,000 rupees. Can you imagine? And they put together 9 women like them, and we gave a first loan of 1,000 rupees each, 1,000 rupees, such a small amount, to each of 9 vegetable vendors who were living in the same slums and selling vegetables in the market. That was the time when we had started a novel program of micro loans in the slums of Pune. It was 93. From the next day, I started going to them every day after my banking hours. I collected 25 rupees each day from each one of them as a loan repayment, of course. That was just like Anna, private moneylender. But I started having meetings every Saturday afternoon with them. That was something different than Anna. We used to sit on gunny bags in the market, chat for hours. They used to tell me about their small pleasures, big worries. They always had less money and more expenses. They had fights at home, fights in the slums. Most of them dreamed to have a good house and education for their children. Just like us, no? They also wanted to know about me. They asked me about my personal life, family, children. They were surprised when they understood that my husband doesn't beat me. After 50 days, my first group of members had finished their loan. And in that time, we knew so much about each other. When I told them they have finished the loan, they were happy. When I told them they have saved 250 rupees, they were happier. I told them because I did not take any interest from them, they have saved this money. They thought my money was magical. I said it's our money now. We had designed our loan product, loan size, repayment period, installment, just as Anna. Only the interest was different. And that had made the magic. With increased confidence, my group of members started recommending us to their friends and relatives. Groups of women started visiting me every day asking for loans. Within a few months, I decided to quit bank. Many people thought I was foolish. I did not care. We went on giving loans after loans. First loans were of course given for repaying private money lenders. Second loan onwards, they expanded business. Office was a very informal setup, just a small room below my house. Sources of finance were obviously personal. We were not even registered for quite some years after we started the activity. We got our first office many years later, which was of course in a slum. Then we started expanding in Mumbai, slums of Mumbai, rural Maharashtra. Many women like Shevantabai wanted loans to repay money lenders, but then to expand business, to improve their housing, to pay the fees of their children. So we designed loan products to suit their needs. We started charging just enough interest to cover our expenses. They wanted a safe place to save. So we designed saving products where they could save with us and earn interest. This is beneficial for Annapurna too, since we have always funds available for giving loans. Then we selected a cooperative credit society structure for doing this activity. Many people preached, cooperatives are risky, politicians will grab them. We said politicians can't grab us if we don't go to them for help. We continued. Today we have developed doorstep service, doorstep banking service in most slums in Pune and Mumbai. We are serving thousands of women like Shevantabai. Then I met Malan a few years later. She was a very young, talkative woman. She was working as a housemaid. Her husband was an auto rickshaw driver. They had 3 young kids. Once we were discussing about some women's issues, and Malan said she was orphaned in her childhood. She had a hole in her heart. She felt breathless at times. Doctor had advised surgery. Her husband was trying to gather some funds for it. She wanted to live for her children. The way she was describing her situation, I felt shocked. I tried to tap some doctors who could help her without charging her. By the time I found one, I got the news of Malan's death. There were many more such untimely deaths. My members were used to such deaths. I wasn't. So I discussed with more of them, many of them, and they said they never get a good doctor's advice. They never have funds to face the unforeseen sickness. By the time they put together some money, the patient gets critical, and thus they lose near and dear ones to such diseases which are normally curable for others who have money. I understood that they needed a health insurance, life insurance, and also proper medical guidance. Obviously, no insurance company was offering such a package in affordable price. So we had to develop our own insurance. We appointed doctors to give advice in our branch offices. It's a free advice. We tied up with most good hospitals to give good treatment to our members. We elected members' representatives to sanction all the claims. The rejection ratio is almost nil. We were rated unfavorably by the rating agencies because we were doing finance and insurance under one roof. Today, most banks are selling insurance to their clients. We are one of the most known community-based insurance model in India. We have very high client satisfaction and low claim ratio because the clients, the members are made aware that it's always better to take care of their health rather than falling sick and taking claims. Then I met Sangeeta many years later. She had a young daughter, 5 years old daughter. Sangeeta had to go to earn for her children, but she was scared to keep her children at home, especially her daughter. There was a case of rape in the slum on a very young girl. When I discussed this issue, there were many like Sangeeta. They were afraid to keep their children home. Some had to leave the children to the mercy of their neighbors. No one was offering affordable daycare service for slum children. So, we started a daycare center. 10 hours of child care in just 300 rupees per month. Everyone around said, "Oh my God, child care, that's not your cup of tea. You should stick up to microfinance now." Thankfully, we did not listen to them. We listened to our members, but did not listen to those who knew nothing about poverty. We went on starting daycare centers in every slum wherever need was expressed. Today, there are thousands of women like Sangeeta who can keep their children in a safe environment and go out and earn. When I met Kanta, she is a destitute. She was asking for a bigger loan to pay school fees of her children. I asked her how will she repay since she was a single earner. She said, "Slowly I'll repay." And then there were many like Kanta who could not give good education to their children because they were single earners, destitutes, divorced, widowed women. So we started educational sponsorship program for their children. In last 10 years, we have sponsored thousands of children. Some of them have become graduates, some have become engineers, quite a few have become doctors too. We feel very proud of them. So you see, we started giving micro loans 21 years later. Today we house a comprehensive development program for women, men, children. Very recently, for the first time, we joined a government program, pension program for the poor. The government just launched it 3 years ago. Otherwise, all our programs were started for self-help without any money. We worked for collective goals. We created our own profit. We were not only sustainable, we are making profits and we are distributing it. We went on adding structures and staff to suit our services. Initially, it was very difficult to get skilled staff. So we appointed those who had will to serve the poor. The skills could be taught and learned. When I look back at this journey of last 22 years and see my learnings from this journey, I feel money is empowering, but participation in decisions is more empowering. We always believed in our members, so they trusted us. We always listened to our clients and never to consultants. Sorry. I don't mean to hurt anyone. Clients know it. Our members have designed all the services for themselves. So they pay for it, they own it and they protect it. We wanted to help the women, but they wanted to help their families. So we had to develop services to help women and their families. We have never worked for the profit of a few individuals. We always worked for collective profits, collective goals and then collective profits. And we generated profits and shared them. I feel very happy when I meet old members like Asha. She is a widow with 2 daughters. I met her in 93. We gave her a first loan of 1,000 rupees. And today she has a loan of 100,000 rupees. She has her own garland making business, married her daughters, and she is very happy. She is repaying installment which is bigger than her first loan size. There are some old members like Sushila Bai who don't want to expand their business. That's why they don't take bigger loans just because they are eligible. They take small loans every year. They stay connected with Annapurna. They take facilities, all the other facilities, and they hope to retire one day with pension. I never expected any financial returns from Annapurna. Of course I got them. All I expected was to see what I believed come true. I grew up believing that the poverty was a man-made problem. If the poor people unite, they will find or fight their own solution. I have to say a few lines still. With your permission, of course. And we have not fought or found a solution, we have designed a solution. And I don't feel I taught them anything. I feel we did it together. As they couldn't have done it without me, I couldn't have done it without them. We believe it is not impossible for any person who is underprivileged to do what we have done. We are ready to share our do-it-yourself kit with anyone without asking for royalty, of course. What we have created together is not an intellectual property. It's a social capital. Thank you.